That's what they said. Hey, guess what? It's the Backpack Show. Fazia is here because she, of course, wants to see Jerry and Daniel have a thing. This is going to be a show today. Carrie was really excited to bring on our author friends, our new author friends, Jerry Zimmerman, Daniel Foster, to talk about, what's the book called, Carrie?
Relentless, the Forensics of Mobsters' Business Practices. It talks about the Hells Angels, the mob, the drug cartels, and what business lessons we can learn from them. I feel a little misled, though, and I'm going to tell them why when we start.
We'll have to ask why. Yeah.
Lots of really interesting lessons in there.
It's always good to learn from the mob.
And it is, right? And you only need to learn that lesson once. They're like, we're going to teach you a lesson. And we're going to talk to mother-daughter business founders, Kerry Schrader and Ashlee Ammons, about mixtros and what it's like to work with your mother or daughter and co-found a business.
I worked with my mom and dad for a little while. They kind of helped me run my business for a little while, and it was good. They were very loving and very smart, except that I kind of ran them into the ground a little bit.
Well,
they still come to the show. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Mixtros is very innovative, helps you get more out of your events by collecting real-time data about attendees and helps attendees have a better experience. So we're going to talk about that.
And boy, do we have a lot of questions for both. It's a big show. Listen, if you're here, make sure you say hello to everybody. Please, if you don't say hi, we don't even know you're here. So please just say hi. It's really quick. Come out of cover. Don't worry, your boss isn't watching. Oh, look at that. Good morning to you. All right. What do you think? You think it's time?
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
Good morning.
See, I've never seen Denver Lee Harris.
I love that picture.
That's so great.
Love it.
Linda's here. Good to see you, Linda. Fuzzy saying hi as ordered.
As requested. As requested. So let's do it. Let's talk about this book. And how right out of the gate, these nice men lied to me.
All right. You ready?
I don't know what I expected from people who write about business practices based on the mob, but this is an economics book.
Jerry Zimmerman and Daniel Foster, she's been had. What happened here?
Well, we got you hooked on trying to learn a little microeconomics, which, Kerry, I understand you hated when you were in school.
I did. I went to Bentley University and I liked macroeconomics, and we had to take micro, and I liked it less. But in this context, it's very exciting. So, all right, I need to ask you then, Gerald, why the mob? Why Hells Angels? Like, why the drug cartels? What made you think, what business owners could learn from is the practices of organized crime?
Well, all of my research for 45 years has dealt with looking at lawful companies, and the general economic question that we teach, and I hope you learned it, Kerry, is that all people are self-interested, and they have wants and desires over all sorts of different things. And so the basic microeconomic problem that all firms, including family-owned firms, have is, how do you attract, retain, and motivate a workforce of very self-interested people in order to work to achieve the goals of the organization, not their own self-interest? And we call that the corporate governance problem. How do you design a system of corporate governance mechanisms to solve that basic incentive problem? And, I've looked at lots of lawful companies, and I've always been interested in crime, true crime, and The Godfather and The Sopranos and all those things. And those movies always end badly for the bad guys. But yet, when you look at how long the mafia in the U.S. has existed, it's been over 100 years. How many lawful companies have survived as long as the mafia has, or even the Hells Angels? So that prompted the basic underlying question: how do these organizations survive despite enormous law enforcement efforts directed at their demise?
So I'm curious to know, Daniel, you hear that this project is, in the works or whatever. You get told by Mr. Zimmerman here, I mean, the way I understand it, Mr. Zimmerman says, I think we're going to do this. And he says, hey, listen, have I got an offer? What makes you join this merry band? I mean, again, you're not an economics guy per se. Like, how do you come to this project, I guess is the question.
It's interesting. Jerry actually taught me at the University of Rochester many, many years ago and took me from being a poet from Catholic University into the mini microeconomist that I am, Chris.
He corrupted you.
He did. It actually, once you realize the premises of what Jerry's talking about there, and by the way, there's many lenses to look at the world. There's a sociological view, there's a psychological view. Jerry's long on economics, and so I'm long on economics as well. I brought Jerry into a client situation a few years ago, and it was a troublesome issue with a big giant company we're working for, and I wanted to just think through with a mentor, and he jumped on a phone call, and every time I get on a phone call with Jerry Zimmerman, my problems tend to go away very quickly. So he did what he always did. He challenged me to think about all the elements, which I'm sure we'll get into. And I said, what else are you working on besides your golf game? Because he's a scratch golfer. He said, I'm working on a book that is studying organizations that'll outlast Facebook, Google, and Goldman Sachs. And I thought, oh, this is your Good to Great. And, you know, you look at Good to Great, and I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of companies in that firm, in that book, that had very rapid demises after the publication of that book, including Enron, by the way. So we talk about our mobsters today and nefarious behavior. We have corporate governance can go wildly wrong, even with the good guys on great days. So he said, would you like to take a look at the manuscript? I said, I'd love to take a look at the manuscript. I took a look at it, and my avocation and the work that I do with CEOs and boards is around the connection of strategy and culture. Those two domains are very tied. And I said to Jerry, I said, there's an element of the corporate cultures of these organizations that this good Catholic boy from Long Island just had never wanted to confront, to think about a group that would value immorality. I usually study organizations, they value customer centricity, they value collaboration, they value openness. And so now we dig in there, we go back and forth for a better part of a couple of years. And here we are with Relentless, because it turns out that culture is perhaps one of the leading indicators of why an organization can thrive and survive despite enormous odds, as the book describes.
Well, my brother and I have the kind of disposition that the mafia gives scholarships for. So it's kind of a shame we grew up on Cape Cod, far away from all that.
When you talked about the different lenses to look through and all that, that really hooked me, because I often tend to look at sociology probably more than not, the psychology. Why do people do what they do from the mental perspective? And when you were saying what you were saying, I was thinking, well, you know, loyalty is one big difference. Loyalty is a massive anchor for what goes on in mafia culture. I also think about, you know, if I were to suppose why they beat something like Enron, is that sort of the chaos almost allows them to be a little more bulletproof than having rigid structure. At least that's how I perceive it. So now I want to know, what's the Zimmerman perspective on that, and just how wrong am I from my fluffy sociology views that you could crush with your math?
Well, you know, loyalty is a part of a culture, and it's certainly the case that these crime syndicates have very loyal adherents, but so do a lot of lawful organizations. So you look at the Marine Corps or the military academies, for example. They instill enormous amounts of loyalty that is really, in my view, no different than the loyalty of these other groups.
So loyalty isn't the deciding factor. So what makes here's a question. What makes a crime organization win or fail, with economics in mind? What
we learn is that especially the mafia and the Hells Angels and the Bloods and the Crips have really followed the same principles as McDonald's. I mean, one of the core organizing principles of fast food or other kinds of lawful organizations is the franchise model. Mm-hmm. The franchise model is that instead of having the store owner instead of having the manager of the local franchise be a manager, you basically make them the owner. And that changes the incentives, because now As the owner of the franchise, you're going to keep 80, 90% of your profits, and you just pay a small franchise fee to the corporation. That's basically the same model that the mafia has. They have these small nodes of made men running crews of associates, and they keep 75 or 80% of their ill-gotten gains. They pass the rest up the chain. They don't call it a franchise fee. They call it tribute. But it's exactly the same economic principles of how do you solve the corporate governance problem. One way you solve it is you give the manager a big piece of the pie.
And to build on that, I'll just say the franchise model really resonated with me, because in order for any franchise to be successful, you have to push out decision rights. You know, I've studied Chick-fil-A and their corporate culture, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know some of their leaders about, well, why is Chick-fil-A so successful? Yes, the chicken is delicious. Yes, the iced tea is delicious, but there's something happening behaviorally at a franchise level. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, he called it second mile service. And he empowers people. He's now long past, but he has empowered his franchisees to do exactly what our mobster groups do, which is to push close to the customer, to make sure that their needs are met, and to go beyond expectations. And so that was a pretty fascinating thing to think through with Jerry. I do consume Chick-fil-A, but Jerry and I are not consumers of the products and services that mobsters tend to push. Yet, the customer centricity and the market adaptability, this week alone, we found out that the cartels down in Mexico is going to legalize marijuana across the country, as we're watching happening sporadically throughout the United States. It should not shock anyone that, do you think that the cartels are now going to let that lawful revenue stream go away? No, they've made it very clear. Not only do they intend to participate in the lawful marketplace that will be emerging in Mexico, but they've already told the market that their brands of marijuana are going to be extraordinary, that they're going to put in it additional things to make their customers happy. Now, we're smiling because 20 years ago, I couldn't have even imagined talking about the legalization of marijuana. And here we are watching agile, customer-centric cartels look at a lawful marketplace and say, I'm not going to cede that to the good guys. Pardon the pun there.
Well, one of the things that is the punchline of this book is that we've been teaching for 50 years that to solve the corporate governance problem of motivating self-interested people, you need to have four things. You have to have empowerment. You have to decide who's going to make what decisions. You have to then measure those people's performance. You then have to reward or punish them for not behaving according to what their goals are. And fourth, you have to have this corporate culture that defines how things are done around here. We've been teaching that for a long time in business schools, and we found that these organized crime syndicates follow the exact same economic principles, that they also have these four pillars. Now, they're very different pillars, and they can exercise their pillars in very different ways. For example, one of the pillars I mentioned was rewards and punishments. And typically, a lawful firm, the only way they can really punish people is by firing them, or terminating them. Well, the mafia has a very different way of terminating people, but it's still a punishment.
Well, yeah, I'd say so. I have a question, though. So you talk about the different types of organized crime and how in the mob, the five families had to come together at one point because mobsters were just like slaughtering each other. You know, people from rival families were killing each other, and they're kind of thinning their own ranks, and it was bad for business. And they eventually solved that problem. But the cartels are still doing that. Like, why have they not come together to try and calm things down a little bit? Why is it still such a free-for-all, do you think?
It's the same. The Mexican cartels are like OPEC in the sense that OPEC tries to run this cartel of oil-producing companies or countries, and OPEC hasn't been able to work because everyone cheats, everyone overproduces, and they don't have an enforcement mechanism. The mafia had this. It was easier to enforce their cartel because they all started in a geographic area of New York City. And one family controlled all of the activities in this neighborhood, another one in this neighborhood. And so it was easy to see if someone was cheating. And so the 5 families got together and they said, look, we're just going to stick to our own neighborhoods and we're not going to kill each other. And it was easier to enforce. Whereas in Mexico, the cartels down there, they're all trying to sell the same thing, like OPEC. OPEC sells oil. The cartels are selling drugs, and they're selling them all throughout the United States. So they're competing everywhere. They're competing for the source of drugs. They're competing for geographic territories in the U.S., and it's too easy to cheat. And also, there's a lot more money, a lot more profits in cocaine than in gambling in New York City. And so the profit margins give the cartels enormous incentives. Again, it comes down to incentives. Gives them enormous incentives to try and get another ton of cocaine into the U.S. because they're making 1,000% on that.
It's incredible to look at the money on that. For instance, I was watching the Netflix special Operation Odessa, which was when the Soviet Union fell. All of a sudden, there was all this military equipment that was available and that people could buy, and the cartels were some of the first to catch on. They were like, "Whoa, could we get a couple of helicopters? Come up and over the wall, and that great wall that was built in the last 4 years." And then they also wanted to buy a submarine. And the only question when they asked about buying the submarine, the Russian guy who was going to hook them up said, well, did you want it with the missiles or not? And that was the only question. So it's a crazy thing. Jerry Zimmerman Daniel Foster, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Relentless. Quite the book. Go to cbrogan.me/relentless to pick it up. Stick around if you can. We're going to have a little panel near the end, so we'd love to drag you back in like they said to Corleone. But we'll put you backstage. Boop, boop. I've been waiting the whole episode to say that.
I've been waiting months probably to use that.
So
it's so interesting, isn't it, that when you look at the underpinnings of any business that works, any business that lasts, legal or illicit, they are the same things work, like the same scaffolding.
Right. It's different paint, different logos, but definitely a lot of the same principles as it were. I think a book like Relentless is worth checking out because it's, they call the economics the dismal science for a reason. And so anytime you get a chance to read it through a lens like this, it's a great opportunity. So if you're an author like that, and you write a book like that, you think it's just going to go out and sell itself. It sure isn't. Boop. You need a site like PubSite. Go to pub-site.com. Authors, you can put up a site really quick and easy, a couple hours really. Nothing to it. Pub-site.com. You get a 14-day free trial. 13 and a half days into it, you'll go, oh God, right. Oh, and then you'll either make the thing in a couple hours or you will pay someone $499 to make it for you. Don't forget, I'm always available. $2,000. I'll make you a site just like that on PubSite.
Don't pay him to make your site. This is so easy. Pub-site.com. It's super customizable and easy. You can totally do it yourself, authors, whether you're technical or not. So pay Chris Brogan to make your website. You're welcome.
Pub-site.com. All right, listen. If you have some Mafia friends and you want to make a Mafia TV show, you can make it on cbrogan.me/StreamYard. What an easy place to make a video show. Nothing to it. cbrogan.me/StreamYard. It's just a bunch of button pushing. I had to give a video testimonial to them yesterday, and I was like, what? I'm not giving you a testimonial. It's too easy. What do you want me to say? It's easy? And that's about all he said, and I sent them the file. So that's it. Listen. Sausages. We are the Sausage Mafia. We can send you sausages anywhere you want. Johnsonville. You just have to email Carrie@chrisbrogan.com. Johnsonville has paid us to mail you sausages. You're not going to believe it.
Or sausage strips if they're available in your area and you want them.
Sausage strips is the newest product from Johnsonville. It is basically if you love bacon but hate the way it gets all curly and weird and sometimes the fat isn't so good, this is human made into a perfect bacon strip that you could never love more, but it's made of sausage. It's like saying if your cheeseburger were made out of pizzas or something. It's like the best thing in the world.
That sounds awful.
Well, I don't know. Someone's going to eat it. So you got to grab you some Relentless. All right. I'm grabbing Kerry Schrader. I'm grabbing Ashlee Ammons.
All right.
We have to get into this. We have to figure out the mixed Stroh's culture. So I wonder if I do this right. I believe it. I got sausage, says Lenny. We're saving yours for the next Johnsonville Appreciation Day, by the way. Don't think we've forgotten you. All right, so there's Kerry. There's Ashlee. I just want to do this.
Ugh,
Two
you're so
carries.
fussy.
Yeah.
Everything in like the order they were in the
But
green
both the
room.
carries are on this side of the screen now. You know, you're over here. We can keep track of you that way.
That's
That's
it.
a good idea. Yeah,
Carrie
otherwise
Schrader, Ashlee Ammons, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on.
Ooh, so
Good
glad to be
morning.
on. Good morning.
So
Now-
why go into business together? Like as a mother-daughter team. My mother would drive me crazy, and I love her.
Did she
Mom.
tell you I was her mother? I'm her sister. What?
Oh, right. You got that wrong. Sorry. Let's check our notes. Sorry.
Yes.
Well,
Better
here,
check.
I'll attack that one. So you go into business with your mom when it's a smart business decision. There's no other reason to go into business with your parent unless they have some sort of domain expertise that makes sense. So my mom and I came up with the idea for our business over the course of the same weekend because we experienced the same thing over the same weekend, the same challenge when we were networking. We both went to events. We both had a weird exchange or experience networking. We had a conversation about it, she and I, and it was really just, wow, that's so strange. We're both so extroverted. If you can or can't tell that we're extroverted. Why did we just have that challenge? What is the, what is the thing that solves for that? So we were just looking just to know what it was. And when we were looking on the Google, that's what my mom calls it, we couldn't find the solution that was solving the problem the way that we were thinking. And so we built it. That's it.
That's it. Nobody's dead yet.
Nobody's dead yet. And wait, I guess I would couple that with my mom was an HR executive and I was an event producer. And so the thing that those two things have in common is an understanding of the human asset and how they behave at work or play.
And networking is always hit or miss at live events. Now, here we are in the quarantine, so we'll get back to that question. But networking is always hit or miss. There's a whole, I'm an introvert. So if I'm not on a stage speaking, and then I get to meet people afterwards, then they all come, flock around. It's all good. If I'm not speaking on that stage, I'm just an attendee. I'm the guy checking out the bookshelf. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. So it's always hard. And you always have that feeling that you're missing some amazing amount of potential. So you launch a software platform. Now, this isn't easy. Neither of you are especially Cody. So what makes you decide you're going to put this together? How do you decide out of all the things you could do, I'm making me some software today? How'd that happen?
I just have to jump in because Ashlee will silence me.
No, wait, hold on, Mom. I wanted to look down and I wanted to Brady Bunch it to you and go, Carrie. Go ahead.
So
Nice.
Thank you, Ashlee. At any rate, it's funny. You said we're not codish. We're not anything. When we came up with Mixtros, I had just gotten out of rehab. Not that rehab for my BlackBerry. I was like, oh, you must fix this little ball because I'm not ever going to the iPhone. So really no coding background. But once we had that personal experience that happened to be on the same weekend and there wasn't an answer, it was kind of like, this is so needed. Our backgrounds validated. Let's go for it. And we really didn't even know what the heck we were going for. And I can tell you this, certainly had no idea how the journey would be. Thank God we didn't know any of the statistics like, oh, Black women don't do this. And Black women that are tech don't do it. And Black women that are non-millennial don't do it. And oh, by the way, you won't get any investment. So had we knew all of that, we probably would have stayed in our careers because we were very, I will say very successful.
It was cushy, y'all.
It was very cushy. And my husband loved it too because he had retired early to be a stay-at-home dad as we traveled around after his career with my career. And so imagine going home, ladies, to your spouse and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to try something I don't know anything about. And we're not going to have any pay coming into this house. So even on the 15th of every month, he still looks in our account and he's like, what happened?
That makes me
Tricky
sad.
feeling. It's a tricky feeling. So I said you do event management software. This is software that lets you come and network with people. It allows you to understand who's there. You've stressed a few times real-time data. And I'm wondering, because I've gone to lots of events, I've run a bunch of events. Actually, the only thing I think of when I think of real-time is when I run a trade show, I need to know that my event exhibitors are getting the booth traffic they need. Mm-hmm. What other reason is there to have real-time data? What does real-time add to the Mixtros experience, please?
Yeah, so to get through Mixtros as an attendee, because basically our whole goal is what we did to build Mixtros is we looked at the way that people connect from a sociological perspective. We find that most people who have built software for networking, they're just thinking tech, tech, tech. And when you do that, you basically come up with Tinder for networking. And Tinder for networking doesn't work for so many reasons, because obviously when you're on Tinder, you're not there to network. You're there to do some other things that I'm not going to mention on this podcast. So so we were just like, okay, let's look at it from a sociological perspective and remove those perceived areas of friction. And what we got to is, if we can ask questions to attendees, they answer those questions in real time. And then based on the way they answer them and the way that they're weighted by the organizer, that's going to make group matches among attendees. And so the other benefit of them answering those questions in real time and being asked in real time, like if you send somebody a post-event survey, the completion rate for that as an industry standard is around 15 to 20%. So what does that mean? That means you got answers from the people who are real excited or pissed off, and you missed the middle of the bell curve. And so when you ask people things in real time, you get higher user adoption, which means you have a more accurate data set to work with. And guys, again, I'm not a data scientist. I'm just a girl who hustles. And now I know all that.
That was impressive.
Thank you.
And you have people who love you already all over this audience. So
Love your hair. Love your hair, Kerry.
Oh, wait, my mom's hair is purple. That's pretty cool, I'd say, y'all. She came over to my house yesterday in Nike Dunks in these new glasses that she had just bought and purple hair. And I was just like, wow, I'm so glad you're mine.
For a fleeting moment, anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not so cut and dry. So that's really interesting about the virtual thing. About if we ask these questions, this has been a little micro passion thought of mine for so long that because there's a creepy factor which makes it not ever going to happen. I always think when I'm at a hotel, there's all these business people at the hotel. How come I don't know who's who? How come I don't know who wouldn't mind going down to the lobby and getting a beverage? We could talk about something. I might have the best possible partner in the world in that hotel, but I'm never going to know. And every time I've ever asked a hotel to make an app like Mixtros in their hotel, they're like, no, too creepy, like too, whatever. But anyway, that's just a comment. There's no question to that. I do notice that you also had to do what the whole universe had to do, and we're all virtual now. So I thought, well, of course you're virtual. Everyone has to be virtual. Who cares? It's just a pivot. Like I'm an event guy. I'm a speaker. I'm not speaking in my house. I'm doing a lot of webinars. So then it's almost like Ashlee heard me, because it says a virtual event without connection is just a webinar. That's some good marketing right there. Talk a little bit about that for a minute. What the virtual event scenario is like.
You want me to pass it to you, Kerry?
No, go ahead. You know what? I paid for your education, so make me shine. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Make her shine. So, we basically took the process that we were doing at live events, and what's the thing that you need? You need video to now bring those meetings together, because when our flagship product, Mixtros Live, that was for things like when people were at a venue and they wanted to kick off the networking, or they wanted to get people seated for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. They wanted to make project teams. That's what Mixtros Live was used for. Mixtros Virtual helps with what I'm about to describe here. So Zoom, let's talk about Zoom, because Zoom is the market leader. They have like 60% market share. Zoom is now like Band-Aid. You could be talking about WebEx, but you might just say Zoom, right? So Zoom, when the pandemic hit, their software didn't change, their value proposition didn't change, none of that changed. What changed is the usership, how people were flocking to the software. At no point did Zoom say, man, we really want to get into the peer-to-peer connection and engagement space. Zoom's job is to bring you online into a secure online facility. That's it. And they can break you up into breakout rooms. But what we find is when you do that and people don't understand why they're there or how they got there, people come into a breakout room and everybody looks disoriented when they get there. Like a spaceship just got it, like dropped them off there, and they're like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? So you have to help humans in the virtual age along with the process, and that's what we do. So we say, think about your Zoom, your WebEx, your Microsoft Teams as the dress, and Mixtros is the Spanx to give that whole thing shape. So I hope all the ladies who are listening in got that, because when I say that to a customer, they're like, wow, you're right. I'm like, yeah. We do the engagement for you so that your people can actually connect. If you have 500 people on a Zoom, how are they actually going to connect and collide with one another in a way that makes sense? You don't know. Mixtros does.
And let's just be clear, because Ashlee said that, Zoom is now the noun, verb, adjective for everything. So when we say Zoom, we're talking about GoToMeeting, Microsoft Meetings, Hangout, webinars, hop in, hop out, hello, Sally, whatever is going on. Mixtros is a complement to that, to do just those two focused things. Connect and engage real folk who are actually on that call or at that meeting, and collect that custom data on the back end for the event organizer, because those questions are 100% customizable. We have a question bank that people can use in conjunction with their own customized questions, because nobody should know the audience more than the organizer. She's doing that because that means quit talking. Like, Carol Burnett used to do that. But the great news is, here's the great news. When Ashlee was born, I was at the top of the bed. So I can actually do and say what I want to. Thank you.
See, but Chris and I don't have that kind of relationship. So I'm not going to get him to stop talking.
You see, she knew what it means. It's like a baseball sign. I'm like, come on.
Steal third.
Fazia asks, how did you pick the app name? How did you pick it?
I got it. So I dreamed about it, and I called Carrie at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, Eureka, I've got it. Mixtros. Mixtros stands for mixer and introduction smushed together. And we put a Z on the end instead of the S because we really like Sarah Blakely, and she has an X on the end of Spanx. And so we were like, all right, it needs to be a goofy letter. Put that Z on there. So Mixtros.
What? Your brother thinks it stands for him, Zachary. No?
It does not.
Oh, he's going to be mad.
I can't tell y'all how many times she's thrown that joke. She throws it at me. I bat it back. Okay.
You know what
really?
makes that
I know
a good
exactly
joke,
what that's like.
You know what's great about that joke I was about to say? We could go on forever. A good joke doesn't have to get put in the closet. A good joke can go on forever.
Thank you.
Any joke,
we
really.
respect the classics, right?
Thank you.
Doesn't have to be good.
Doesn't have to be good.
The thing, I have so many things I want to do, but listen, one question I have is, when you do these kinds of presentations and whatnot, in the event world, Ashlee, as you well know, people are fussy, right? Like, people only want to spend money on something that's going to up the value to the event. Like, it's amazing when people pitch event managers, they always pitch these things that are not going to add money to anything. They're fluffy, they're lightweight or whatever. You've had a chance to do this now. I imagine there's a little bit of both of your salesmanship involved in this sort of thing. I think that there's Carrie's kind of warm, I feel what you're feeling kind of way. And then there's Ashlee's, this person didn't reply to me, I'm go back and, make sure I get that reply I was waiting for. Like, how does the sales process work?
Ashlee, let me just say one thing, and then you can have it.
Okay.
Chris, you keep saying the words events, and you're right, but I do want your listeners to understand, for us, events are in 3 different verticals: colleges and universities, events, conferences and conventions, trade shows, and then business enterprise with companies of 500 or more employees. And Ashlee is going to tell you the ROI on that increased engagement is not just fluff across all 3 of those. They're money makers.
Yes. And what I was also going to say, Chris, I can tell that you're a people person. You say that you're introverted, but you really understand people, because you nailed me and Carrie's roles. My mom, I like to refer to her as the mayor, because whenever she walks into a room, people are generally like, oh, Carrie's here. Hello, Carrie. How are you? And she wants to stop and talk to all of her constituents. Whereas me, I walk straight to my desk, sit down, and get busy. So that is literally the way that we balance things out. Thank you for your ability to identify that. I mean, I'm nice, but
no, she's not.
I came from New York, and I want to cut through all the stuff, right? I just want to get there. So the way that we explain it, so for example, when I'm talking to a college or university about Mixtros and why they should use it, and we have some great customers like Johns Hopkins, Emory University, Babson College, so good customers. I go to them and I say, somebody on your team is about to have to break these students up into student groups for orientation. How long does that take the person on your team to do without just counting them off like, here's all the A's, here's all the B's, here's all the C's, because that does nothing for their peer-to-peer engagement. Or they just know that their students, when they get there, students will flock to students who look like themselves. So that's why you see students like in a lunchroom, for example, and it looks like it's segregated by race or gender or something else. That's actually a sociological phenomenon known as homophily, or the thought that birds of a feather actually do flock together, which indeed they do. Or the student is going to do the third and final thing, which is if they can't find someone to engage with, they're going to pull out their smartphone and disengage from the room completely. So why is that engagement important? Because engagement in students peer-to-peer directly ties to their rates of progression, retention, and graduation. So that leads to tuition, which is the bottom line for that university. So when their students connect and collide with one another, when students meet their best friend on campus or their future spouse on campus, all of that stuff actually affects the bottom line of the college or university. That's why these colleges were flipping out when their students couldn't be on site, because that is messing with that experience. And that means that their attrition rates are going to be higher, which freaks them out, of course. So when I tell them I have them this tool that can do that for them, collide their people in ways that make sense, and then also give them some data to learn about the students so they can make their events better, moving forward, Mixtros sells itself. So in education, it's progression, retention, graduation. When we talk about inside of an enterprise, when coworkers are peer-to-peer engaged with one another, like their accidents the percentage of accidents that happen on the job, those go down. They show up to work more often. And then over time, all of these positive things will lead to higher profitability for that enterprise. And same thing for events. When you engage your attendees at an event, they're more likely to do what you want them to do, which is purchase, donate, sign up, and keep coming back. If I had a mic, I would drop it.
You got to start bringing one, Ashlee. Just bring your own.
I 100 have to say to Kerry and Chris, just yesterday, I was thinking, what if I would have took the money I sent her to college with and invested it in GameStop earlier this week? But it looks like I made a good decision to go ahead and get her through. I
think so.
Wow. So I'm getting texts and everything like this from people saying best guest ever. So you certainly sold people. I have one last really fluffy, superfluous question. You are both, from Alabama. One of you seems like you're from Alabama. One of you seems like Alabama maybe isn't big enough for her. You seem, Kerry, if I would expect to come down and see you and we would have a nice leisurely meal and we would talk nice and, like this. Ashlee, you have places to be.
I got places to be. Yeah.
Well, first of all, and I love, what is it called? My hometown, Alabama, Sweet Town, Alabama, whatever it is.
Sweet home, Alabama.
But we are transplants. We are originally from the Cleveland, Ohio area. And through my adventures in my HR career, we bounced around, and we actually moved here with an intention in the last couple of years because Birmingham, Alabama got behind our business. They actually were the catalyst to making us the 37 to 38 Black females to ever raise $1 million plus in seed fund and tech. And so we moved, but we are Cleveland, Ohioans, and we are very nice. My husband is nicer than me. So if you come down here, he is a cooking fool. He will cook and we will drink and it will be leisurely, but don't get it twisted. I can be gangster when need be.
That's perfect because we got a couple gangster experts here.
We've got to drag a few gangsters back onto this for a panel.
Wait, can I just say, let me boggle your audience's mind right now. So my mom just said that fact, like we are the 37th and 38th Black female founders to ever raise more than $1 million in seed funding for a technology venture, which is crazy because that happened in 2018, y'all. So where my mom and I are sitting right now in Alabama, I'm in downtown. My mom's in a suburb, but we're literally about, what is it? How many miles?
120 miles.
120 miles from where we sit right now in Alabama, in another part of Alabama, is actually the plantation our family is from. So
That we visited, yes,
Yeah.
like 15 years ago.
we've
Yeah.
seen
Wow.
this thing, and it's eerie as heck. But what's amazing is we are literally our ancestors' wildest dreams, and so we are so proud of that.
Yeah, you are.
Amazing.
Wow. And we should also point out, as we were giving you some accolades, that you also won that recent Amex, whatever the heck they call it, where they,
100
also
for 100.
100 for 100.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how
Well,
we got to know you. Carrie.
That's
got
it.
to know you.
We've been doing some. I was gonna say we've been over here hustling, y'all. Even in Alabama, where things that tend to move very slow. I have to tell people about being from Alabama. I'm like, y'all. I'm like, I love the Lord, but I also don't take no. You know what? Go ahead, Mom. I'm done.
Oh, she froze.
Wait, she froze in the
there.
best
there we go.
position, but now she's back. Great.
That
Okay.
was
I said, hurry up, Ashlee. They want other guests.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
It's-
Come back, everybody. Let's talk.
I feel like I should adjust your expectations though, because Chris and I are both from the Boston area, so we're not known for our hospitality or anything.
we got nothing. So our joke about Boston is if somebody falls on the street in front of you in Boston, you don't help them up, not because you're mean, but because you're embarrassed for them. So you just keep going. All right. I'm going to grab Mr. Zimmerman, who is now very well lit, and I'm going to grab Mr. Forrester. Hello, welcome back, gentlemen.
Good to be back.
What a mix. We got to hear all about the space of economics and how not so lawful businesses apply them. And now you heard about a networking application that would allow some of your shy gangsters to get to know each other.
Very shy.
They'll never be customers of your platform.
No, because they don't want to put their data in, right? They don't want to give up that much information.
They
That's
certainly
right.
don't want to be identified.
No.
But they might
Yeah.
use it, like you mentioned, if marijuana is becoming legal, they might have like a mixer event. They might very much want data about the people who go to it. I mean, that could
Oh,
be
maybe they
valuable.
want their customers to be members of
Yeah.
the Expos.
That's what I'm
Mm.
thinking. Because the more
No,
they know
just-
about them, you got to know where to go if you're going to break their legs, is what I'm saying. Like, where do they hang out? How do
Just
you know?
listening to Ashlee and Kerry speak, one of the fundamental tenets that you learn right off the bat when you're studying and thinking about microeconomics is a model of how resourceful human beings are and what we value. And the resourcefulness of the two of you and what you have done is just an inspiration. It's incredible. And the adaptation and iteration, I just was in love with the story. And yes, mobsters, by the way, they're resourceful as well. But here, the two of you are just wonderful entrepreneurs, and you inspire. So I just wanted to put that in the room.
Wow.
Wait.
Wow.
And Daniel, we're receiving that. Thank you very much.
Is this what the millennials do?
That's what they do.
OGs go like this.
Well,
I'm Gen X. I'm Gen X,
No.
Kerry. So all this stuff is done.
Me too. But under different circumstances, you two would be running a crime syndicate, like be crushing it, I think. That's what it sounds like to
Oh
me.
my gosh.
And maybe like an appendix for that, for like women-owned organized crime syndicate. Putting it
There've
out there.
been very few of those. Is that right? I'm trying to think. I can't name too many organized crime syndicates that were women run, at least on the face.
Well, I just saw an article posted yesterday that women are starting to run some drug syndicates around the world. And they're not very nice people.
What a shock, Jerry.
I mean, this is not a very diverse set of people in these groups. I mean, most of them don't allow women. The Hells Angels and the mafia don't allow women, and they don't allow choir boys.
That's a real thing? Like they really don't? You mean actual choir boys or like metaphorical
Choir boys,
choir
as in don't sing, don't talk, keep it.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, they could have a very short but illustrious career in one of those organizations. How long does it take to become a made man, since they're almost always men?
Oh, at least 5 years, sometimes 10 or 15.
Oh,
Wow.
You know, can I just comment on
Daniel.
that, Carrie? That was one of the big moments. Jerry said to me at some point, he said, Daniel, how hard is it to get hired by your company through? And I said, proudly, boasting, I said, it's really hard. I said, we have like a 2% acceptance rate, and we put people through all these interviews and tests and such. And he said, could you imagine a 9-year interview process in order to be vetted? And now there's no company, including Ashlee and Kerry's, that we all don't have time as entrepreneurs for 9 years, but there's something about the process of really thinking intentionally about who's going to come into the firm, especially if you're going to be empowering them with decision rights at that sort of node level, right? At that franchise level. So that was an interesting thing to think about, of who you hire and how you onboard is something that companies struggle with. Our mobsters have an incredible process that they go through in a very private and public way inside the context of their cultures.
I feel like they could have shortcut it with Mixtros. Like just get that data at the beginning. Like, how do you feel about killing people who maybe haven't done anything to you personally? Okay. Progress. Level up.
Right. I'm all in. Maybe. I don't know.
I have a certain moral flexibility. Management material. How can we best help you? Asks Kate. So, I mean, buy this book and go check out Mixtros for the next event you plan, I guess, right?
Yeah, Kate, next time you're, Kate runs around at a lot of events. Kate, I see Kate at virtual events. I see her at, marketing events. I mean, we can help in making some connections that way. And also, if you're going to need doggy treats, you can always,
y'all.
I see a little furry
Oh my
creature.
gosh.
I need everybody to know. So my poor puppy got surgery the other day. That's why this contraption is on her head. Say hello, Lucy.
She wears the cone of shame.
That's it.
But how does she get like a soft, fluffy, pretty one? That's not what they put other dogs in.
Because her mom is legit. That's why. I said they tried to give me that cone, and I was like, "Oh, y'all can keep that." No, ma'am.
In fact, she put the travel pillow that I paid a lot of money for her to use when we were traveling. I'm like, does Lucy have that pillow around her neck?
That's
then
right.
that came. Yes.
It's not like you're going anywhere.
It's not like you're going anywhere. I'm glad that it got used.
But stay ready.
Right?
So-
Because they'll be back. That's what I keep thinking is like right after, I don't know when the return to normalcy will be, like what threshold of vaccination, blah, 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 whatever. But people are going to want to get the hell out of the house.
Oh
There's
my
going to be like a crazy resurgence of live events, I feel like.
Yes, and goodbye.
You mentioned the vaccine, by the way, as I'll put this in the room. As we went to publish on January 12th, we found out, we got an alert, because I've been getting an alert on the word mobster for 2 years now. I read every article. And the alert was from Interpol, the connection of all of the global police forces and federal agents. And they put out a warning that, of course, our mobsters are going to be involved in the illegal distribution of the most precious resource on the planet right now. And it's not stock in the game stock and all the stuff that's happening or Bitcoin. It's, of course, the vaccine. So why wouldn't the mobsters figure out? And by the way, we're already seeing through lawful means, I'm seeing articles all over the place in the United States about the disproportionate access that privileged people are taking. You think the mobsters are going to miss a chance to get in on the most precious? Of course not. So they're they're already doing schemes in the vaccine distribution business.
We just need women in charge of it, because I was immediately like, all right, well, it's difficult for my elderly relatives to get online and do that stuff. Why don't we just use the jury duty system? They mail them little cards to everybody, be like, go get your shots, guys. We could set up outside the courthouse. You can get them there for jury duty. You can get them there for vaccinations. You're welcome. Just put women in charge.
Yeah, no, you really.
Yep.
I'm down with that. All right. It's this part of the show. Time for this.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
By the way, Kate Colgan's person of the day, so that was perfect timing. So.
The mobsters are going to give out vaccines. Can you imagine? They're like, we're going to rub you out so that we can sterilize your skin and give you this vaccine.
Oh, that was actually pretty funny. All right. I'm going to also go to the next part, which is the last question of the day, which is what goes in your backpack. I have a feeling, there's so much to look at. Daniel had another book before Relentless came out. Mr. Zimmerman has been in several books, most famously his accounting book, but also has been part of several books. But now they're mobsters and they can't go back. Corleone has already said they'll pull you back in. So I'm curious what's going to go in your backpack. It could be something physical, like a cone for your dog's head. It could be something metaphorical, like a drive or relentless pursuit of excellence. It could be whatever you want it to be. So I have a question for you. Let's start with Kerry Schrader. What goes in your backpack?
I knew you were going to save me for some reason. And what I'm going to do is throw up my cup, this brush ribbon. So in my backpack, I put health of our company, health of our just relationships, but personal health. I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer right after we had raised friends and family round of funding. And so I'm real big on telling folks, male and women, like, go and do all of your annual stuff, because if you're not healthy, the health of anything in your backpack is not going to count. And so, like, I'm really, really thankful and blessed, and all of that stuff, faith, family, friends, and focus on Mixtros got me through. And I'm like 5 years into health. 6. Right. But again,
That's it.
That's
I
wonderful.
love it. Ashlee Ammons, what goes in your backpack?
I know. I feel like she was so like meta and profound. I was just going to say, and this will be a shocker for y'all, my boxing gloves. I'm always ready.
Nice.
I'm always ready. I stay ready to defend as necessary.
Hey, Corky's here. I didn't see Corky coming. Hi, Corky. Boxing gloves is very fitting, especially now that I get the Cleveland background. Now I understand.
Yeah.
So I only did a few days in Cleveland, but they were entertaining. All right. Gerald Zimmerman, what goes in your backpack, good sir?
Well, I would not leave town without my GPS golf watch.
Nice.
And my camera, so that I can continue to be the family historian. That I think it's very important for kids and grandkids to know where their parents came from, what they did when they were growing up. And so between these interviews, I've been digitizing 6,000 family pictures for posterity. So those are in my backpack.
I love it. Now I'm curious if that watch also carries a near field communication for any of the balls that you shank over into the bushes. You know, does the watch also have a tracking system to find the balls that you lose?
Would be the joke among my playing partners is I only need 12 golf balls for a decade.
Okay.
I don't shank.
Good to know. So
I don't shank. I don't lose balls. I find more balls than I lose. So if you want to use golf balls, I'll send them to you.
golfballs.com. Side project. Daniel Foster, I don't know how you follow all that up, but
I don't know.
Gonna make you do it.
A good book, right? So a book's always in my backpack, and Audible has become really wonderful because I've just been doing a lot. I just started a new book that I've been listening to from a physicist from Harvard University named Avi Loeb. And Avi has been blowing my mind with a discovery that they made in 2017 of perhaps the first connection to another world. Who knows? It certainly wasn't a meteor. That in 2017, we had an interstellar object traveling 55,000 miles an hour touch the edge of our part of the galaxy. And by the time we understood what it was 2 million miles away. And Dr. Loeb is postulating that it might be something that mankind couldn't even contemplate in thinking about who we are and where we are in the universe. So I've been reading that, listening to that on Audible. I'd say the other thing, I don't know how you put it in a backpack, but going on walks has been just joyful for me these last weeks and months, because it's maddening not to be together. It would be joyful to be in a room with all of you instead of doing it over Zoom. So I don't know how you put a walk in a backpack, but it gives me just incredible joy to be outside and praying and just feeling the sun and realizing that this will be over. This will end at some point, and we're starting to see the end of it.
And you don't even need a gesture to shut up your co-host. You just kick them. Looking forward to it.
My grandmother, bless her and rest her soul, my grandmother had a way to shut people up, and it was a magic trick that involved these two fingers. Let me tell you how she did it.